Thank you for watching the Linda Eastburn YouTube channel. And I would like to remind everyone to please subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep everything going. Doesn't cost anything. Just reach over there and click on that and it'll be great. Thank you. I really appreciate it. My guest today is Tod Samples, and he is a Bigfoot researcher. Anxious to hear what all he has to say about Bigfoot. So welcome to the show, Todd.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. So how did you get involved with all of this to start with?
Well, about nine years ago, I moved up here to Humboldt County, Northern California, from Southern California, and I met a friend who was my fellow researcher, Doug Shea, and we like camping and hiking, so we started camping and backpacking and hiking and stuff, and then one thing led to another, and we started getting into the Bigfoot uh, field, or looking at watching videos and shows and stuff, and we just started having our own experiences out while we're camping and hiking. So it just grew from there, and we just started recording what we're doing. We started casting prints and started going out to certain areas over and over, and we had a number of experiences.
Well, that's interesting. A lot of people were interested in this as a child. Now, were you introduced to the whole Bigfoot phenomena earlier on, like through books or films or anything like that?
Yeah, when I was a child, I had a possible experience when I was younger back in um, Kentucky, and I started. I watched the In Search of, saw the uh, PG film when I was a kid, and I read some books, but then once I got about 12 or so, I kind of went off and was doing other things, and not until 10, 11 years ago, I started getting more into it.
Mhm.
So I knew a little bit about the subject.
So when you said you had some kind of an experience when you're young, you were just talking about the books, or did you actually have some type of experience in the woods or with Bigfoot?
Yeah, we may have had an actual sighting of a Bigfoot when I was probably around 10 years old. We were my mom was the county Girl Scout leader, so every year we went down to a Girl Scout camp down in central eastern part of Kentucky, on the western side of the Appalachians. There was a Girl Scout camp, and anyway, we would go. My mom would take a group of girls, and I always went with her because my dad worked, so I went everywhere she went, and we would do these hikes, the same routes every couple of days. And one time we were hiking around, and we stopped for lunch, so we're eating our sandwiches and stuff. And one of the Girl Scouts said, "Hey, look up there on the hill. There's some guy watching us." And we looked up there. My older sister was there with us, and my mom, she saw it, and she kind of freaked out, and she said, "Let's go. Let's get our lunches. We'll eat on the trail," and we left. It wasn't until I saw the Marble Mountain footage of a possible Bigfoot up on the ridge that I started thinking about that. And then I mentioned it to my sister, and she said, "Yeah, she had remembered that very well." And she said, "Yeah, that kind of reminded her that it was big, all dark, and just watching us from a distance,
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
60 yards, no, probably about 100 yards away."
yeah. There's a Boy Scout camp here in Missouri that kind of a like story where several of the Boy Scouts at camping one year saw something. There again, didn't know for sure what it was, but they described it in a lot of the same manner. And that has retained legend in this state for quite some time. So you were kind of introduced to this at an early. Did that pique your interest, your curiosity about Bigfoot, or did it just kind of in passing just remain a memory?
Well, at first it did, because I started reading, the books at the library at my elementary school, and I got into it for a few years when we lived back east, and then we moved back to California. I kind of, you know, kind of forgot all about it and started, doing other things, and and not paying attention to it anymore.
Yeah, lots of time in between there and when you actually started researching about 11 years ago. So this friend of yours that kind of got you back into the throes of thinking about Bigfoot, was he already researching and having some experiences?
He he had been backpacking with his family, with his wife and kids, for 40 years. So he had a number of experiences. His son was on an episode of Finding Bigfoot
Hmm.
because him and his brother had a well, he had a sighting up in that Trinity Alps.
So
So
can
my
you tell me about that? Can you tell me about that sighting that the friend of your son had?
I can a little bit. Him and his brother and I think another friend were backpacking in the Trinity Alps, and during the day, his friend had saw something on the other side of the lake, but he wasn't sure what it was. It was big and dark, and so Tim, that was my friend's son, wanted to go around and look at it. And his friend said, "No, no, no, I'm not going over to look." So then that night, they were all sleeping, and I think they had their wives with them, and he heard something outside the tent, and he looked out, and this Bigfoot, and Tim was a skeptic. He made fun of people who had believed that there was this large ape creature in the woods. He saw this thing grab his backpack from the tree and pull it down, and he unzipped it, and then he yelled at it, and it dropped it and took off running.
Wow.
Yeah,
That would be kind of a scary scary experience.
yeah.
So it was in the middle of the night and this was happening at his campsite. Do you know how he responded? What did he do?
He yelled and he woke up the rest of the his brother and his friend, and they talked about it, and that was basically it. I think. I mean, I wasn't really this is third-hand experience from my friend, but that was one of the stories that he told me that we got started getting our interest peaked in the subject.
So was that the story that got him on finding Bigfoot?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they, you know,
Yeah.
it was during the town hall when they interview people, and they point where they found it, but I guess it was too far out in the mountains for them to actually get out there and do use him as a witness, because it was just they backpacked 10 miles into the forest.
Yeah, exactly. One of the guys, one of our Bigfoot researchers on the movie that I made, Byways of Bigfoot, he also was on finding Bigfoot. And same thing, he had an experience when he was a teenager and along a river right outside of the town that I live in now, just being really, really close into town, but yet it was kind of on the suburban area of the town. And he was young. It was dusk, and he went down to the river, he and a friend of his, and he looked up the river, and there was a Bigfoot that just stood up, and it was enormous. He couldn't see the features real close, the facial features, just the kind of an outline because it was almost dusk and the sun was sort of in between. The Bigfoot was between he and the sunset. So it was kind of more of a silhouette is what he saw, but it was gigantic, he said. Yeah, they can be very impressive. That's
Yes,
for
they
sure.
are.
Yeah. So your first episode of going out and looking for Bigfoot, what happened on that journey?
Well, the first time we actually went out to look for Bigfoot. Many times we had nothing. But one of the first experiences we were up in the Trinity Alps. That's where we like to go camping. There's a certain spots, and we hiked. We drove down back to this one area we called dry camp, and there was four of us, and we got out. The one guy who was with us, he was a hunter, so he took his gun and he went down this other trail. We hiked into this area that we wanted to go look at, and it was me, Doug, and my now son-in-law, Caesar was there. We weren't having any luck. It was just so thick. We found the trail that other friend was on. We hiked down, found him a couple miles down, started hiking back. We stopped at this clearing to have some water, and all of a sudden we heard 3 knocks north of us, just knock, 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 and they were separate. They were, it wasn't coming from the same spot. They were, a distance away, but they weren't probably 100 feet from us. I mean, it was close, really close. So Caesar went up to an area to look behind this wall of brush and trees, and then Doug went into this hole in the bushes to see what he could see. Caesar thought he saw Doug walking back in there, but we just came back out, and we hiked back out, and we went back to the campsite, and we were talking that night, and we realized Caesar didn't see Doug because Doug was right by the bushes. He saw a Bigfoot. So the next day we went back there, me, Doug, and Caesar, to recreate this. I stood where he saw this Bigfoot walking through this ravine, and yeah, definitely it wasn't Doug. Doug was 100 feet away, but what he saw of me, all he saw was my shoulder and head. What he saw of this other creature was from mid-thigh up, so this thing was a lot taller. So we were looking around this area. We were hearing knocks. We probably heard 20 knocks that day, the few hours we were there. So we hike around, go up into this one area, and we come over this ridge, and there's like a huge bowl, probably like 5-acre bowl, which is a huge area. And we're hiking around. We split up, going in different areas, and all this time we were hearing movement in the bushes, knocks, not right where we were, but in the surrounding area. We found this area that had mounds and mounds of animal poop. I mean, huge pieces just on top of each other, about a 40 square foot area. And we ended up meeting there because this was kind of strange. We had taken some pictures of it, and then we were standing there, and over the ridge there's like a stack of wood, and we heard this enormous knock. I mean, it's like it took this big branch and just cracked really close. So we decided we were getting a little too close to where they were at, and we left. We hiked out, and the whole time we were leaving, we were hearing movement and knock. And actually, that before we got there to the dry camp area that day, before we hiked back down the area, Caesar said, "Watch, when we pull up and get out, we'll hear a knock." And I thought, "Oh, that's going to be too much." And as soon as we got there, we got out, and we heard a knock from behind us. So they knew we were there again before we even got out of the vehicle. That was pretty wild that day.
Yeah, for your first time out, I would say it was for sure.
Well, I wouldn't say it was our first time out, but it was the first time we had an experience.
I see. So how many times had you been out that you didn't have any evidence of anything?
Probably 80% of the time. I mean, we've had most of our luck in the wintertime, early fall, or fall and wintertime. And both of my sightings were in January.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think the wintertime is a better time to see them?
Well, I believe because where we do our research up in the Bluff Creek area, when it's where everybody else goes in the summertime up, by the PG film side and the popular sites, they're frequently they're frequented by people all the time. Well, not all the time, but occasionally, and it's pretty warm. So I think they stay down in the creek areas, and they don't really come up except at night. But in the wintertime, when the snow level comes down, they follow the deer and the food source, and that's where we've had our best experiences, is at the snow line, halfway down the mountain.
Yeah,
And I
that
think
makes
that's,
sense. That makes sense that they would be following the food source and also probably fewer people are out there.
oh yeah, there's no one up there in the wintertime because you can only get maybe 10 miles up the Grove Road off the main, I won't say the main highway, but the closest highway. And I mean, there's really nothing to do up there in the wintertime except look for animals or for Bigfoot.
So how many encounters would you say you've had?
Well, I've had two sightings where I've seen them. My friend Doug has had two, one together, and then the one he had was my brother-in-law up in Oregon. That was in 2024 of January.
Well, we've heard about the possible sighting you had when you were young, and then this one, and you've had one more, right?
Oh, actually, I've had two more. So
Two
a
more. Okay.
possible three, I guess. Possible three.
Okay. So tell me about the other one that you had.
Well, the first one I had, it was January of 23. Yeah. And me and Doug, drove up the Go Road. This is a road goes, I don't know if you're familiar with Orleans, California, and it goes up into the Bluff Creek drainage area. So we get up to about mile 7, and we can't go. Well, there's a lot of snow, so we turned down this lumber road that we'd never been down. We drove about 2 miles in, and we had to get out and walk because there's too much ice and snow on the ground. So we get out, and we start hiking up, and we get about a mile in, and we heard this loud, just it sounded like a huge boulder fell off a hill and just landed on the ground, just a really loud noise. So we kept going, and we probably go another mile, and we figured, it's in a little later and a little darker because it's a winter time. So and on the way in, we found this. Well, there's this ridge above us, and Doug said that would be a good place for a predator to, stay and watch, like a mountain lion, and wait for a deer to walk by or something. But on the way back, we're right at that spot, and I heard a noise, and I looked up, and this creature, it's all I saw was basically the back side. I didn't see the front. It moved between two bushes, grabbed this tree, and violently shook this tree. All the snow came off it, and then we heard about 4 or 5 footsteps as it walked away, and then we heard 2 more knocks down the road on the way that we were going to be heading. So I mean, it lasted 2 seconds, the sighting, if that, but
Have you ever
it was,
felt like you were in danger from any of these encounters?
um not really in danger. There was a time that I was really scared. It was at the middle of the night, I was just, I couldn't move. It was, we had one like 10 feet outside my tent one night, and it was kind of frightening. I thought, well, this thing could just grab my tent and just drag me into the forest, and that'd be it.
What were the sounds you were hearing? What did it do out there outside of your tent?
Oh, that time we were up at a place called Bear Lakes. Doug had experience there back in 2016, I believe it was. So we decided to hike in there, and it was me, Doug, Carrie, no, not Carrie, Caesar, and then Blaine, another friend. And this was pretty deep. We drove about 12 miles off of the highway, got to the trailhead, hiked in another 4 miles, and we got there when mid afternoon. Found this camp that was by the lake. It was just it looked like people had just grabbed their backpacks and left. There was tarps, food packages, pots and pans, canned goods or old canned goods, just a big mess. So and there was tarps, clothing. We we gathered it all up, cleaned it up, and put it into the tarps. And we took a hike around the lakes that were there. Got back that night. We were pretty tired, so we went to sleep. the next night, Caesar and Blaine were up still, and they were hearing all kinds of we heard a knock before we went to bed, one knock across the lake, and then that night they were hearing all this movement from around the camp in the bushes, like they were getting closer. Me and Doug woke up and we hung out for a little while, but it kind of died down. So we went back to bed. The next day, Caesar left, and we were having some noises up on the top of the ridge that day. And then that night is when we really had the experiences. Me, Doug, and Blaine were left at the camp. We had some knocks before we went to bed, in the evening before it got dark. We heard this metal clanging, like they had some kind of cans maybe from the campsite, and they were banging them together or something. And then we were up till about, I don't know, 11 or so. I'd gone to bed, and then I woke up about 2 or so, and they were building the fire. They were stacking wood up, getting a lot of fire going. And I got up, and they said that they had been trying to wake me up for a couple hours. And they said these things are coming in from all sides. They're hearing all this noise, the brush moving, hearing tree knocks. So we stay up for a couple hours. The fire starts getting lower. Nothing's happening. So we all went back to bed. Doug and Blaine, all they're asleep right off the bat. They're snoring, and I'm in my tent, laying on my back, couldn't sleep. And the fire, I can see the fire through the tent. It's dying down, and it's getting lower and lower. And then once it gets so low, all of a sudden I hear the brush moving, and I hear I'm camped. My tent's by this dry creek bed, and all of a sudden I hear footsteps, and I can feel it in my back. This thing coming in, and it gets right outside my tent, and I'm laying there, not being able to protect myself anyway, but I'm just like, I couldn't move. I couldn't even look, undo the tent to look out there. And then all of a sudden, all the wood that was stacked, they threw the wood on, a piece broke off, landed in the coals, and the fire grew real fast, and then this thing turned around and left it ran off. And that was that. I mean, it wasn't a sighting, but it was outside of my tent, about 10 feet or so. So
Did you see that? Could you see the flames of that fire or the embers spring up whenever
Yeah.
you hit it? You could see that.
Yeah, once it sprung up, you could see it through the tent. It just got really bright, and this thing just turned and ran really fast.
And you could hear it running off.
Yep.
Any smells, any sounds, any grunts or anything like that you could hear?
I didn't hear any grunts, any smell.
Just a sounds of it coming into the campsite.
The footsteps. Yeah.
Did you ever have any food stolen from your campsites?
No, we never had food stolen. We put out food before, apples, and we've had some of those taken. One time we put out 4 apples, me and Doug did, and 3 of them were from his friend's tree. One of them was from the store. The 3 that were grown on the tree were taken. The other one was left there.
Why do you think that was?
Well, they could probably smell the chemicals that was sprayed on the apples. They didn't want anything to do with that one.
Yeah, that's probably true. They can probably determine when something is super organic or not. Yeah, I would imagine so. Probably have good sense. What do you think these things are?
Well, they're an animal. They're an upright walking primate.
Flesh and blood.
Yep.
A lot of people think they're something other than that. So I always ask that question.
Now I've seen a couple of them, and they're just an animal. They're not even the largest animals on the planet. So it's not like they're this huge monster. We have whales, and we have elephants and giraffes. They're taller and bigger than Sasquatches.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you think they haven't got definitive, I guess, proof of them yet? And what do you think will cause that to happen?
Well, I think there's enough proof out there to prove their existence with certain photos and videos, the footprints. I mean, there's so many footprints out there. Castings, the footprints that we found in the snow. I mean, there's just so much evidence out there. I mean, unfortunately, they're going to have to, science wants a body. I mean, that's the only way it's going to be determined a true species is someone bringing a body in.
Yeah, yeah, and there's some suspicion there is a body somewhere, but no one knows exactly where it is. What do you think of you're up there near the Patterson-Gimlin film where that was taken. What are your thoughts on that film?
Oh, it's real. There's no way that they could have faked that in 67. No one has been able to fake a video like that since. So I mean, they definitely couldn't do it back then, especially Bob and or Patterson and Gimlin. They couldn't. They're Bob was a rodeo guy, and Patterson was just a cowboy. Want to be filmmaker. So I mean, they didn't have the resources to make something like that fake. They were just very lucky, the right place, the right time. I mean, the times I've seen them, it's been pure luck.
Yeah, that's true. I think that probably plays a large part into it too. There's a lot of information around that whole Patterson-Gimlin film that that we don't get a lot of the details. I guess a lot of that, but a lot of suspicion, a lot of theories out there on that. I think part of the evidence is the analysis of the muscle movement
Mhm.
because it's such a big body, and the way that the muscles move have been almost impossible to fake that.
Oh yeah, and where the film site is, it's not accessible by vehicle. I mean, these two were on horseback. Now, I mean, you can take a horseback in there, maybe, but you're basically hiking in, and it's a good from where you can drive your vehicle to, you're still a good mile and a half away of rugged terrain. It's
Yeah,
not,
yeah,
a walk in the park.
yeah, it would be been really hard. And why would they have filmed something that far inland when they didn't have to if they were just going to
Yeah,
fake the film? Yeah.
yeah, they
Okay.
could have done it a lot closer and a lot better.
Yeah. I think it's probably still one of our best pieces of evidence
Oh yeah.
that we have, especially given the era that it came from. Now, what do
Mhm.
you think of the Sierra sounds? Have you heard the Sierra sounds?
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you think of those?
Well, I've heard chatter twice up here in our areas, and they sound very similar. The chatter I've heard wasn't as aggressive as the Sierra sounds. To me, the Sierra sounds, they seem to be more aggressive. I mean, they sound really, not happy that they were there. But no, I think they're real.
Yeah, the Sierra sounds, it does. It sounds like as if there is some confrontation that's building up, in that. My first Bigfoot interview was with Scott Nelson, who's analyzed those,
Okay.
and it slowed them down, and where you can really hear the dialect that's going on there. And it sounds like a man, a woman, and a child. And the
Yeah.
man and the woman are arguing about something, and they suspect that the man did not want the male Bigfoot did not want these campers up there. Female may have been trying to, calm him down. I don't know for sure, but that's kind of what it sounded like with the way that they were going back and forth, so for such a long time. Most of what we hear is just little bits and pieces of that, but that was a very long period of time that
Oh,
they
yeah.
were recording them.
Actually, the first experience I had was a chatter. Me and Caesar, this was August of 2018. This was actually a little bit before that other story I had mentioned, but we were driving up into the Bluff Creek area in my Jeep. We'd never been to this area before. We'd always gone to the Alps. We said, well, I told Caesar, well, let's go up into the Bluff Creek area where they did the filming and all this stuff. So we drove up there in my Jeep. We weren't planning on staying the night. We were just going to go up there for the day. We drove to the end of the go road, and we're looking around. We found free breaks and different things. But we're driving, and we wanted to find a place because it was getting late, and we didn't want to be driving these back lumber roads after dark because we had no clue on where these roads went. So we found this place called Loud's Camp, which is a famous campsite, which we at the time we didn't know what it was. We got there. I started to make a little fire. Caesar went down into the creek to swim, and I'm sitting there, and from behind me, but my 8 o'clock, I hear this this chatter. I mean, it was like just this weird. I've never heard anything like this in the forest. Kind of would kind of freak me out a little bit. And I'm listening to this thing for a couple of minutes. So I get up, start walking right towards it, and all of a sudden it just quits. I walked maybe 20 feet. This was probably a good 80 yards away, and it stopped. So I sat down. Caesar comes running up from the creek, thinking there was people there. I go, what do you mean? Because I heard like a car door shut. I heard people talking. I go, no, it wasn't people. I said that was a chatter from over behind us. And he got all excited. So he wanted to stay up late. So he was laying down on the picnic bench to take a nap. And about a half hour after we heard the first one, all of a sudden it starts up again. And it sounded, there was at least two of them, maybe three. And it was going on. This time it just kept going probably for at least 5 minutes off and on. And I do the same thing. I get up and start walking that way, and it stops. And that was the last we heard it, but twice we heard, 2, 3, 4 minutes of chatter twice. And that was wild. Hearing that was unbelievable.
Yeah, some people say it sounds like a foreign language. It sounds a little bit like an Asian type of language, possibly. But then other people say that it has a little bit of the sound of a Native American language.
To me, it was just garbled, but you could tell it. There was at least two of them, and it was like they were talking to each other. I mean, so it wasn't just growling or making noise. These things were actually communicating with each other.
Yeah, because even if you're listening to someone who's talking a foreign language and you're hearing two people discuss something, you get some kind of an idea based upon the inflection of the voice, just how that sound, how it's sounding with one another. You can tell anger sometimes. You can tell when someone is being empathetic with someone else. I mean, there are all kinds of ways that you can tell what's being communicated just from the sound of the voice, not necessarily the words that are spoken. Did you get any sense of what they were trying to communicate at all, what the tone was?
No, but it wasn't. They weren't aggressive. They were just. It sounded like they were just talking to each other about us being there. I mean, we hadn't seen any. But this was in August. We hadn't seen nobody all day. No other campers, no other people around at all. So it was, and we thought that was kind of weird. But this area isn't frequently visited by people. I mean, certain weeks of the year, I know when people are up there, the Bluff Creek project guys and certain researchers go up there certain times of the year. But yeah, there was no one up there at all.
So you stayed all night in that campground, but nothing else happened during the night?
Nope. That was it. I mean, I when I sleep pretty hard. And I was sleeping inside the Jeep because we didn't have a tent. We weren't planning on staying. So we just slept in the Jeep. Caesar was going to sleep out on the picnic bench, but it got dark and he came knocking on the window. Say, hey, can I come in there and sleep too?
Yeah, a little safer.
After hearing that chatter and it gets, I mean, when up there, it gets black. I mean, it's pitch black. You can't see nothing at night.
Yeah, I think it was probably safer in the Jeep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
Some days. Of course, I've heard of them, banging on automobiles too and putting dents in cars. And things like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and houses too, hitting the side of a house and making lots of noise and yeah. I even heard of one incident where there was a basement, kind of like a cellar under a house, and supposedly a Bigfoot was under there and pounding on the floor of this kid's bedroom, and it just making all of this noise and the sound. So they can be really close sometimes.
Oh yeah. I haven't had anything like that. I mean, I've had our trailer, something rocked it at night once, or we had a pop-up tent on a little trailer, and it got moved.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of that too, where they would move it over, a few inches or something.
Or just
Um,
push it,
yeah,
and the
just push
trailer
it.
rocked back
Yeah,
and forth.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there have been a few incidences that sounds like they're pretty aggressive. What do you think makes them be aggressive or just retreat?
Well, they're an animal, and it's built into them to be a little wary of humans. I mean, I'm sure they've seen. I mean, they've seen humans with guns, and they know some humans can be not friendly. So they're not going to just walk up and shake our hand or give us a hug. I mean, they're cautious for a reason.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. I'm sure there have been lots of people that have been happy to shoot at them or do them harm in some fashion out of fear or otherwise.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, there's stories about some people being able to have very close encounters. Whether that's true or not, I'd like to think they are.
Yeah, some people befriend them almost. I mean, it's
Yeah,
they have habitual Bigfoot clans on their land,
yeah,
and
they come visit them.
develop this somewhat of a relationship. I mean, it's not like they invite them over for dinner, but they are able to at least co exist with them on the land.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that would be pretty nice.
Yeah,
Have a
I think you get to know them a lot better. I heard of one where they had a greenhouse, though, and this juvenile would come and raid the greenhouse and get all of these vegetables and things sometimes. But they were able to get a handprint on the door of the greenhouse, and it was this
oh
huge, big, so they were able to get the oil from that and get some DNA off of it. So
yeah, that'd be good. I mean, my friends joke that because we usually drive my gold truck up into the mountains when we go, and my friends joke that they know who we are when they hear and see my truck. They know Todd's in the forest, and that's why we have so many encounters or experiences because
yeah, some people say that that they know when you're there, they know when you arrive, and they have a good sense of who you are. If you are a
yeah,
danger to them, or if you're just going to leave them alone.
yeah, I think that's true. I think they know certain people. If you're up there and they see you a lot, they're not wary of you. I did have a rock thrown at me once. This was last August, actually, a year ago, August, um, up in that area. Mm.
I think that's typical, especially the juveniles throwing the little rocks, and things. I know one man, he was deceased before I got to interview him, but I've heard his story through numerous other people that knew him well. And he was out mushroom hunting. And here in Missouri, we have mushrooms. And he was just out by himself mushroom hunting one day. And these little pebbles were coming his direction. And he finally turned around and looked, and there was a juvenile, obviously, wasn't a huge one. But he started going back, and they would come visit, his little area there, and he was able to see them often. Eventually, he learned kind of where they were. He kind of hung out with them a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't say they were friends, but they didn't seem to mind him being there, and they were not aggressive at all. They were just present, and he enjoyed watching them.
Yeah, I think they're just as curious about us as we are of them.
Yeah. I think so. What do you think about them coming in closer and closer to cities? I've heard of a lot of cases where they were raiding like dumpsters and things like that.
Well, I mean, they're they're probably in the need of food, and they're close enough to a city where they can come in at night and just grab what they can and get back out. I mean, I wouldn't imagine they would come in during the day. They'd only come in at night, and it's not, it's an opportunity for food. I mean, they're
It
like
is. Yeah.
any animal. Bears, they come. We get bears coming way into our town. I mean, they'll come in a half mile, and they go through 20 trash cans at a night to get food.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing. And of course, I can smell it for miles and miles and miles away. So it's going to draw them in if they're hungry, if they're not getting enough food in the areas that they normally would find food. They would probably look for some, I would think, in the dumpsters, wherever they could get it.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard several stories, and even like cafeterias, school cafeterias. At the end of the day, they've dumped everything out in the dumpster, and that's a prime time because school's out, nobody's there. They'll come in the evenings and go through those dumpsters too.
Yeah. I mean, if the schools are on the edge of the town,
Mhm.
it'd be
Right,
like,
exactly. Close to a forest or close to
yeah,
a
agree.
grove of trees or something where they
Yeah.
can be hidden enough to make their way to the dumpster. And
Yeah.
oftentimes dumpsters are in an enclosed environment too,
So
sometimes, and that can possibly help them to be concealed.
yeah,
So do you think they want to be seen, or do you think they just want to not be seen?
I think they don't want to be seen. I mean, if they want to be seen, I think they allow us. Some of the two times I've seen it recently, it was both there. It was running away. I said up the back of them, so it didn't want, it didn't want to be seen.
Yeah, didn't want to approach you. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Lots of people see them along the side of a roadway or crossing a road or something like that too.
yeah. When Doug and my brother-in-law Kerry had a sighting in Oregon up in Mount Hood. This was it last? No, it was two Januaries ago. We had gone up to Squatch Fest, and on the we we got there the day before, so we wanted a day to go around the area to look around. We went up to Mount St. Helens. It was raining and there was a bunch of snow on the ground. I mean, you couldn't do anything. So we found a spot down in Oregon that wasn't it was going to be clear for like 4 hours, no rain. It was down by Mount Hood. So we down there, looked around, drove back up to another place called Sandy Ridge Trail, parked the car, and we started hiking up this old road had a gate. And we get about a mile and a half up, and Kerry is kind of disappointed. He's like, well, this really isn't that to him, it wasn't a squashy area. And it wasn't a minute after he said that, we both hear a knock. He goes, you hear that? Well, yeah, I heard that. And I'm down. Doug's farther up, and then Kerry's like in the middle. I'm farther down, about 20 yards below him on this road. And Kerry hears another knock, and he looks over and goes, look. And he sees this thing, I think Cliff said it was like 60 yards away, messing with something in his hands. And when Kerry said that, this thing looks up at him, and Kerry gets a view of his face. And Doug, in the meantime, looks over and sees it. And the thing turns around and darts off. I unfortunately didn't see it. I guess I was too far down, or I just wasn't in a good spot. And then they saw it, and they were all excited. And we end up meeting up with Cliff Berkman and Matt Pruitt that weekend. And that Sunday before we went home, we all went out there. And Cliff he found a bunch of footprints. He tracked it, did some castings on it. So it was I think he said it was like a 15-inch footprint. And he was telling us something because he tracked it all the way down to the river. And he said it took off a ways, but then it stopped, knelt down above this ridge that overlooked the road, and he said it probably watched us as we left. And then it continued down to the river and crossed the river, and it was gone.
Think they use the rivers for travel? Do you think they go by riverways or?
Well, up in the Bluff Creek area, the only way that you can get around is if you're on the roads or you're walking by along the creeks because it's so steep. I mean, for them it's not hard, but for us, so I can imagine it's easier for them to walk on the ridges or the old lumber roads or being down in the creek areas because it's easier to walk, easier to get around, and the creeks are like roads. They can follow the creeks and get to certain areas where they nest or food sources.
Yeah, a lot of people seems like they see them in a creek or near a creek or campsites, they're near creeks as well. It seems like there's just a lot of water that seems to be involved in sightings.
Well, they're big creatures, so they need lots of water, I assume.
And other life forms also are round creeks and lakes
Yeah,
and such too. Whether it be fish, because I've heard a lot of stories about them fishing. They'll catch fish
yeah.
from the rivers and eat that as well.
And we have a lot of salmon up in our area, so I'm sure that's a good food source for certain times of the year.
They don't seem to bother domestic animals as much, cattle or dogs, cats. I mean, have you heard of anything like that? Them invading ranches or farms?
Not locally here, but I've heard stories from around where they've killed dogs, from if they've went after them or something, or I've heard stories where they come in and eaten or taken chickens or even hogs.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure if they're hungry, they'll take what they can, whatever's available, on a farm. But I suppose most of the time there's an ample amount of deer and other such things that they can. So a few people think there's an association between coyotes and Bigfoot. Have you heard that?
yeah, I've heard of that. I've never had that experience. I've never heard coyote howls around um, our experiences. When I lived in Southern California, we had a lot of coyotes out in the desert area. I mean, and I've heard and seen a lot of coyote sounds or howls and stuff. And up here, I've never seen a coyote once or heard them. So personally, I mean, it may be true in some areas, but the experiences I've had, I've never heard or seen them together.
It'd be hard to if there wasn't a coyote around, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what about the structures? Have you seen any structures that you feel like Bigfoot's had any part in building?
Yeah, that sighting I had off of what we call Head Camp Road. When we found the footprints, the snow prints the next year, we drove back down that road and went up behind that where that Bigfoot was up on that ridge. And not far from there, we found a structure. It was a natural blown over clump of trees. But then this one section, you could see the branches hanging down. It was all snapped off, and it made a nice little. I mean, it wasn't little. I laid in there. It was huge. I looked like a little tiny thing in there. But it was probably 8 feet wide or deep by 12 feet long. Something had snapped off all these branches and made a nice little cave or a little area to sleep in. And it wasn't far from that sighting. So we figured, and we found a couple of footprints near there. So we assume with the footprints in that little sleeping area, it probably made it. I don't think it was a long-term nest, but I think it was just a convenient place to hunker down for a few days or so during the wintertime.
Do you think they all do that? Because you don't see too many of those that are that big.
No. I mean, we've seen other ones too. We've seen smaller ones. But we've probably found a handful, maybe 10 structures that we really think that were deliberately made by a Bigfoot.
That's quite a few. Yeah, that's quite a few. And the length of time you've been researching, that's several nests or structures.
There for probably 3 years, we were up in our area at least probably once a month. I mean, on day trips, mainly, but we would go up there to camp too, but we've been up there many times.
Have you ever seen any orbs out in the woods around there? I mean, I just hear of those quite a bit, and I don't know if there's
Um,
any correlation between Bigfoot and orbs, but I always like to ask to see if you've seen any.
when we were up at Bear Lakes, and I had that one up on my tent, my son-in-law, he said that he had saw a white ball uh, that the night that he was up. I'm not a big orb guy. I don't because I'm not a UFO or I think big Bigfoots are just an animal, and I just don't see any connection between them.
One of the things that I have noticed is that the orbs seem to be more related to just nature in the woods, like there's some phenomena that's happening there more than anything else, whether there's Bigfoot involved or not. Because I know a lot of people that see them that have nothing to do with Bigfoot research or have nothing to do with seeing a Bigfoot, so I don't know
Well,
if there's any correlation, but it's something. Yeah.
I did small research, or Caesar did most of it about, and there is a phenomenon about lightning balls.
Hmm.
You got um, electrical energy in the earth, and they can create these. They call them lightning balls that kind of I don't know if they float, but they see these balls of light at night in certain areas, and it's mainly from some kind of electrical impulse from the earth or something.
Yeah, I don't know the technicalities of that either, but I've heard of that as well, the lightning balls. Yeah, for sure. Well, anything else that we haven't covered? What else can you tell us?
Well, we found snow prints. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was April 30th of 2023. Up the Goa, we found 100 yards plus of a trackway going up the Go Road and then coming back down. And we found handprints there. And we probably had there's easily over 100 footprints in the snow. We were driving up the Go Road, me, Doug, and Carrie, for a day trip. Went through 3 sections of the road that had snow on it, and there was no other track, so no one had gone up to that area yet because of the snow. We got to a point, the 10-mile marker, and we found these footprints with toes. They were 13 inches long by 6 inches wide. The trackway going up was 4 feet apart. The gate was 4 feet, and the snow was clean. There's no other prints, no other marks, and the trackway coming down was 6 to 8 feet apart. And that was we were there. We took pictures and video, and we didn't have any casting materials, which I'm not sure how easy casting in snow would have been, but there's the toes in a lot of them were so distinct, and it's not like there were some people online that were saying that they were hoaxed and we made them out of some kind of stompers, and we use all this crazy stuff, but the footprints, even though they was from the same animal, they weren't all 100% exactly the same. Each one had a little different. The toe spray was a little different. There was different subtle differences, but it was all obviously the same animal, same the same trackway, and that was actually pretty good.
Well,
And
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
we had sent them to Dr. Meldrum, and he agreed they were pretty. They were legit.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that was a pretty neat find.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. Yeah,
Once
for
in a
sure.
lifetime. We've tried. Last winter we went up to the same area, but we did cast a print that next summer about a mile away at a place we call Heinz Camp, that we camped there before, but we found a track same size. We casted it, and And so we assume that's the same animal that made the snow prints.
Yeah, very likely so. That's fairly interesting. Well, thank you so much, Todd, for coming on and telling us all of your Bigfoot adventures. And it sounds like you're doing some great work, and I'm glad that you shared them with us.
Oh, thank you. Enjoyed it.
Very, very good. Thank you for being here. I just want to also thank the audience for watching, and please like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time.